Chapter 1, The Breach. The void trembled as the human dreadnought Ironhold tore through hyperspace, its hull shimmering with the distortion of folded dimensions. The ship was not alone. 12 other dreadnoughts followed in formation, their drives burning with a cold precision that spoke of human resolve. No banners, no fanfare, only the silence of machines and the steady pulse of war. On the bridge, Admiral Reyes stood with his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the tactical display. The alien world ahead, Zalaris Prime, was dying. Its atmosphere was collapsing under the pressure of the Ghost Fleet's harvesters, vast constructs that siphoned energy from the planet's core. The Zalari had begged for aid, their empire fractured and arrogant pride stripped away by extinction. Humanity had answered not out of mercy but calculation. If the Ghost Fleet consumed Zalaris, Earth would be next. Status, Reyes asked, voice clipped. Hyperspace breach in 60 seconds, reported Commander Vera, her tone steady despite the tension. Enemy constructs detected in orbit. Ghost Fleet signatures confirmed: 3 harvesters, 2 carriers, and multiple drone swarms. The crew exchanged glances. Everyone knew what those words meant. The Ghost Fleet did not fight battles, it consumed them. Every drone destroyed, every ship crippled, every casualty fed their algorithms, evolving them into something sharper, deadlier. Humanity's strategy was simple: deny them growth, strike hard, strike fast, leave nothing behind. Bring the dreadnought line into wedge formation, Reyes ordered. We punch through, no hesitation. If we stall, they learn. The tactical hologram shifted, 12 dreadnoughts aligning into a spearhead. Their hulls gleamed with the scars of past wars, each vessel a monument to human stubbornness. The Zalari remnants, fragile cruisers and battered frigates, trailed behind, their commanders silent, ashamed to rely on the species they once dismissed as primitives. The hyperspace rupture came like a scream. Space folded, then tore open, and the Ironhold surged into real space above Zalaris Prime. The planet below was a wound, oceans boiling, skies fractured by energy siphons, cities crumbling under gravitational stress. The Ghost Fleet harvesters hung in orbit like blackened suns, their surfaces alive with shifting geometry. Contact, Vera snapped. Drone swarms inbound, vectoring to intercept. The bridge lights dimmed as the dreadnought's weapons charged. Rail cannons locked, plasma lances primed, missile silos armed. Reyes leaned forward, voice low but unyielding. Fire, the Ironhold unleashed a storm. Rail slugs ripped through the void, plasma beams carved arcs of white fire, and missiles streaked toward the nearest harvester. The other dreadnoughts followed suit, their combined barrage shaking the orbital battlefield. One harvester shuddered under the assault, its geometry twisting in response, trying to adapt. Target is learning, Vera warned. Its armor is reconfiguring. Then we don't give it time, Reyes replied. Shift fire pattern, randomize trajectories, overload its predictive algorithms. The dreadnoughts obeyed, their weapons firing in chaotic rhythms. The harvester faltered, unable to anticipate the irregular assault. A rail slug pierced its core, detonating in a burst of fractured light. The construct collapsed, its geometry unraveling into shards that drifted into the void. Cheers erupted across the bridge, but Reyes silenced them with a glance. 1 down, 2 remain, stay focused. The drone swarms closed in, thousands of black specks moving with eerie coordination. They struck like a tide, slamming against the dreadnought's shields. Sparks cascaded across the Ironhold's hull as impacts multiplied. Shields holding at 80%, Vera reported, but they're adapting, their attack vectors are shifting. Reyes turned to the comms officer. Signal the Zalari fleet, tell them to engage the drones. Draw fire, buy us time. The alien ships hesitated, then moved. Fragile cruisers and frigates plunged into the swarm, their weapons firing erratically. Many were torn apart within seconds, but their sacrifice created gaps in the drone formation. The dreadnoughts exploited them, lances of plasma slicing through clusters of drones, thinning the tide. Second harvester charging planetary siphon, Vera warned. If it completes the cycle, Zalaris Prime is finished. Reyes' jaw tightened. All dreadnoughts converge fire, priority target, second harvester. The wedge formation shifted, dreadnoughts aligning their weapons on the massive construct. Coordinated barrage erupted, hammering the harvester with relentless force. Its geometry twisted, trying to adapt, but the humans pressed harder, refusing to give it the chance. Critical damage detected, Vera said. It's destabilizing. The harvester imploded, collapsing into a singularity before vanishing in a burst of gravitational shockwaves. The planet below trembled, but the siphon cycle was broken. Reyes exhaled, a rare flicker of relief crossing his face. 2 down, 1 remains. The final harvester loomed, larger than the others, its geometry shifting faster, more aggressively. It had learned from the destruction of its siblings. Its drones moved with sharper precision, cutting through Zalari ships like blades. Admiral, Vera said quietly, this one is different. It's evolving faster than our weapons can adapt. Reyes stared at the tactical display, the weight of command pressing down. Humanity had come to save Zalaris, but the Ghost Fleet was not merely an enemy, it was a predator, and predators grew stronger with every kill. Then we changed the rules, Reyes said. His voice was calm, but the crew felt the gravity of his words. Prepare the hyperspace lances. We're going to tear it apart from the inside. The bridge fell silent. Hyperspace lances were untested, experimental weapons designed to destabilize dimensional geometry. Using them against a construct like the Harvester was reckless, dangerous, possibly suicidal. But Reyes' tone left no room for debate. Charge lances, Vera confirmed, all dreadnoughts aligning. The void trembled again as the weapons powered up, hyperspace energy bleeding into real space. The Harvester sensed the threat, its geometry convulsing, drones swarming in desperation. The Zalari fleet broke, ships scattering, but the humans held formation. Reyes' voice cut through the chaos. Fire, the hyperspace lances unleashed. Beams of folded reality tore into the Harvester, ripping its geometry apart. The construct screamed, a soundless vibration that shook the void itself. Its drones convulsed, collapsing mid-flight, their algorithms unraveling. The Harvester twisted, folded, then shattered, fragments scattering into nothingness. Silence followed. The battlefield was littered with wreckage, Zalari ships burning, human dreadnoughts scarred but standing. The planet below still trembled, but it lived. Reyes closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, gaze hard. Transmit to command, Zalaris Prime secured. Ghost Fleet constructs destroyed, but they're learning faster. Every victory is temporary. The crew exchanged grim looks. Humanity had won a battle, but the war was shifting. The Ghost Fleet was evolving, and the void itself was their hunting ground. Reyes turned back to the stars, voice low. Beyond the void they wait, and we will meet them there. Chapter 2, the fractured accord. The silence after the Harvester's destruction was deceptive. It carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken calculations, the kind that commanders and empires make when the battlefield shifts beneath them. On the bridge of the Dreadnought Resolute, Admiral Reyes stood unmoving, eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Zalari fleet, once arrogant in its numerical superiority, now drifted in disarray. Their ships limped, hulls fractured, command channels flooded with panicked transmissions. Yet Reyes knew better than to mistake their retreat for surrender. Status of the Zalari flagship, Reyes asked, voice clipped. Flagship Vathar is holding orbit, Vera replied. Minimal damage, their escorts are scattered, but they're regrouping. Reyes' jaw tightened. They'll posture, they always do. The comms officer turned. Incoming transmission, Admiral, Zalari command, put it through. The holoprojector flared, casting the image of High Strategist Kalith, her angular features sharp with disdain. Behind her, the fractured glow of Zalari command screens flickered. You trespass beyond your mandate, human, Kalith hissed. The Harvester was ours to dismantle. Your interference destabilizes the Accord. Reyes didn't blink. The Accord died the moment your fleets abandoned Zalaris Prime to the Ghost Fleet. We saved your world. You're welcome. Kalith's eyes narrowed. You mistake recklessness for valor. The Ghost Fleet adapts. Every strike you make teaches them. You accelerate our extinction. Reyes leaned forward, voice low, deliberate. Then extinction will find us fighting, not kneeling. The channel cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Vera exhaled. They'll move against us. Pride won't let them do otherwise. Reyes nodded. And pride is predictable. Prepare for counterstrike. Hours later, hyperspace rippled again. The Zalari regrouped, their fleet forming a crescent around the human dreadnoughts. Their ships gleamed with alien alloys, elegant but fragile compared to the brutal geometry of human warcraft. Multiple lock-ons, the sensor chief reported. They're targeting our flanks. Reyes' voice was calm, almost detached. Hold formation. Let them commit. The Zalari opened fire. Lances of plasma streaked across the void, hammering against human shields. The dreadnoughts absorbed the barrage, hull plating glowing but unbroken. Return fire, Reyes ordered. The Resolute's batteries roared. Kinetic slugs, accelerated to relativistic speeds, tore through Zalari cruisers. One ship split apart instantly, its crew vaporized before alarms could sound. Another spun out of formation, engines gutted. On the bridge, the crew worked with mechanical precision. No shouting, no panic, only the cold rhythm of war. Admiral, Vera said, the Zalari are faltering. Their flagship is pulling back. Reyes studied the tactical map. They're testing us, measuring our endurance. They'll retreat before they break. As predicted, the Zalari disengaged, their crescent collapsing into scattered vectors. The void fell silent once more, wreckage drifting like frozen ash, but silence was never safety. Admiral, the science officer spoke, voice tight. Residual hyperspace anomalies detected. The Harvester's fragments, they're not inert. The display shifted, showing shards of twisted geometry pulsing faintly. Each fragment bled hyperspace energy, folding space in erratic patterns. They're reforming, Vera whispered. Reyes' gaze hardened. Not reforming, learning. The fragments convulsed, threads of energy weaving between them. A new construct began to coalesce, smaller than the Harvester, but faster, sharper. Its drones ignited instantly, swarming outward with terrifying precision. Ghost Fleet construct designation unknown, the sensor chief reported. It's adapting to lance fire, shield harmonics shifting. Ray's voice cut through the rising tension. Target the fragments before they stabilize. All batteries fire at will. The Dreadnoughts unleashed a storm. Slugs and lances tore into the forming construct, but its geometry flexed, absorbing impacts, redirecting energy. Drones swarmed the human ships, striking shields with coordinated bursts. Shields at 70%, Vera called. They're probing for weaknesses. Ray's tone remained steady. Then we give them none, rotate harmonics, cycle lance frequencies, keep them guessing. The battle intensified. Human dreadnoughts shifted formation, overlapping shields, firing in staggered volleys. The construct twisted, drones collapsing under relentless fire, but its core pulsed stronger, folding space around itself. Admiral, the science officer warned, if it stabilizes, it will replicate. Ray's eyes narrowed. Then we end it now, he keyed the command channel. All dreadnoughts prepare hyperspace overburn, direct strike. Gasps rippled across the bridge. Overburn was a weapon of desperation, channeling hyperspace energy beyond safe thresholds, risking catastrophic collapse. Admiral, Vera said quietly, we may not survive the discharge. Ray's voice was iron. Neither will they. Execute, the void trembled as human dreadnoughts aligned. Hyperspace lances charged, energy bleeding into real space, hulls groaning under the strain. The construct sensed the threat, geometry convulsing, drones swarming in panic. Fire, Ray's commanded. The overburn lances unleashed. Beams of raw hyperspace tore into the construct, ripping its geometry apart. The void screamed again, fragments unraveling, drones collapsing mid-flight. The construct twisted, folded, then shattered, its core imploding into nothingness. Silence followed. The dreadnoughts drifted, hulls scarred, systems strained. Shields flickered, engines sputtered, but they stood. The construct was gone. Ray's closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, gaze hard. Transmit to command, Ghost Fleet construct neutralized. Solari fleet repelled, but the fragments are evolving. Every strike teaches them. Every victory shortens the war. The crew exchanged grim looks. Humanity had survived another clash, but the void was shifting. The Ghost Fleet was learning faster than anyone had feared. Ray's turned back to the stars, voice low. Beyond the void they wait, and we will meet them there. Chapter 3, The Shattered Silence. The dreadnought Resolute hung in the aftermath of the overburned strike, its hull plates scorched, its reactor bleeding heat into the void. The crew's breaths were shallow, the silence oppressive. The construct was gone, but the war had not ended, it had only shifted. Admiral Ray's stood at the command dais, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Fragments of the Ghost Fleet construct drifted like malignant spores, each shard pulsing faintly as if testing the boundaries of real space. Status, Ray's said, voice steady. Commander Vera scanned her console. Primary shields at 30%, reactor containment holding, but we're running hot. Engines are crippled, we can maneuver, but not at combat speed. Lieutenant Corps' voice cut in, clipped and precise. Enemy fragments are vectoring away, not retreating, dispersing. They're ceding the battle space. Ray's jaw tightened. They're learning. Every strike teaches them how to survive the next. The crew exchanged glances. Humanity's greatest weapon, the dreadnoughts, were no longer overwhelming. Each victory was a lesson for the enemy. Admiral, Vera said quietly, command will want proof. They'll demand confirmation that the construct is neutralized. Ray's gaze hardened. Proof is irrelevant. Look at them. They're adapting faster than our doctrine can evolve. Command will cling to the illusion of control. We cannot. The words hung heavy. Ray's was not a man given to despair, but the weight of inevitability pressed against the bridge. Then the sensors screamed. Contact, Corps barked. Multiple signatures, Zalari fleet reinforcement, heavy cruisers, carriers, and drone swarms. They're closing fast. The display lit up with crimson markers. The Zalari had not fled, they had regrouped. Their arrogance was legendary, their empire vast. They considered humanity a nuisance, a primitive species clawing at survival. But the humans had shattered their construct, and arrogance demanded retaliation. Ray's voice was iron. All ships, battle stations, we hold the line. The dreadnoughts shifted formation, battered hulls groaning as maneuvering thrusters fired. The human fleet was small, 3 dreadnoughts, 2 escorts, but their discipline was absolute. The Zalari cruisers advanced, their hulls gleaming with alien alloys, weapons arrays glowing with cold precision. Their carriers released swarms of drones, thousands of needle-like craft darting forward in coordinated waves. Range closing, Corps reported. They're locking weapons. Ray's raised his hand. Steady, let them commit. The bridge crew held their breath. The void seemed to tighten, anticipation coiling like a predator. Then the Zalari opened fire. Lances of plasma streaked across the void, impacting human shields with brutal force. The Resolute shuddered, alarms flaring. Hull plating buckled, but the dreadnought held. Return fire, Ray's commanded. Human rail batteries roared, kinetic slugs tearing through the void at relativistic speeds. The first salvo punched into a Zalari cruiser, ripping its hull open in a spray of molten fragments. The second salvo crippled a carrier, its drone bays erupting in fire, but the swarm pressed on. Thousands of drones swirled around the dreadnoughts, probing, striking, testing. Shields flickered, hulls scarred. Admiral Vera said, voice taut, "We can't hold against sustained pressure. They'll bleed us dry." Ray's eyes narrowed. "Then we bleed them faster." He keyed the fleet channel. "All ships execute pattern black. Target carriers first, break their swarm." The dreadnoughts shifted formation, overlapping fields of fire, rail batteries synchronizing. Salvos tore into the carriers, ripping them apart one by one. Explosions flared across the void, drone swarms collapsing as their command nodes died. But the Zalari cruisers pressed closer, their arrogance undimmed. They believed humanity's endurance finite, their desperation a weakness. Rays leaned forward, voice low. "They think we fear death. They think we cling to survival. They are wrong. We weaponize desperation." The words carried across the fleet channel, a reminder of what humanity had become. Not conquerors, not saviors, survivors who turned survival itself into a weapon. The battle raged. Plasma lances carved into dreadnought hulls, rail batteries answered with brutal precision. The void became a storm of fire and steel. Then amid the chaos, the fragments of the Ghost Fleet construct pulsed. Kor's voice was sharp. "Admiral, the fragments, they're moving. They're aligning with the Zalari fleet." The display shifted, crimson markers merging with the pulsing fragments. The Ghost Fleet was not dead, it was evolving, merging with the Zalari. Ray's face hardened. "So the arrogance of empires meets the hunger of the void, and we stand between them." The crew felt the weight of it. Humanity was no longer fighting one enemy, but two: alien arrogance and the adaptive terror of the Ghost Fleet. Ray's voice cut through the tension. "We hold, we bleed, and when the void learns, we teach it fear." The dreadnoughts fired again, rail batteries blazing, shields flaring. The battle was no longer survival, it was defiance. And in the shattered silence of the void, humanity's defiance burned brighter than any star. Chapter 4: The Shattered Line. The dreadnought Resolute shuddered as another plasma lance tore across its forward shields, the impact reverberating through the hull like a hammer blow. Sparks cascaded from overloaded conduits, but the crew held their stations, faces set in grim determination. "Status," Admiral Ray's demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Shields at 40%, rail batteries holding," Kor replied, eyes locked on the tactical display. "But the Ghost Fleet fragments are adapting faster than projected. They're syncing with Zalari formations, almost like they're rewriting their doctrine mid-battle." Ray's leaned closer to the display, watching crimson markers shift with unnerving precision. Zalari ships, once predictable in their arrogance, now moved with a fluidity that suggested something more, an intelligence that learned, absorbed, and reshaped itself in real time. "They're not just allies," Ray's muttered. "They're becoming one organism, and if they finish merging, we're staring at a fleet that thinks like a machine and strikes like an empire." The words hung heavy. Humanity had fought arrogant empires before, had endured their disdain and their belief that humans were fragile, expendable. But this was different. This was arrogance fused with hunger, a predator that learned with every strike. "Admiral," came the voice of Commander Vera from the ironclad, her tone clipped, precise. "We can't hold a static line. They're probing, testing, and every time we counter, they adjust. If we stay defensive, we'll be dismantled piece by piece." Ray's jaw tightened. "Then we stop being defensive." He opened the fleet channel, his voice steady, deliberate. "All units, listen carefully. The Zalari believe we cling to survival. The Ghost Fleet believes it can consume us. They are both wrong. We weaponize desperation. We weaponize survival. Shift formation, break the line." Gasps echoed across the comms. Breaking the line meant abandoning the traditional wall of dreadnoughts, the shielded phalanx that had held humanity together in countless battles. It meant chaos, risk, exposure, but it also meant unpredictability, the one weapon the Ghost Fleet had not yet absorbed. "Execute," Ray's ordered. The dreadnoughts moved, engines flaring as the formation fractured into jagged shards. Instead of a wall, humanity became a storm, individual ships darting, weaving, striking from angles the enemy had not anticipated. Rail batteries fired in staggered rhythms, plasma bursts countered with brutal precision. The void lit up with fire. On the Resolute, Kor's hands danced across the console. "They're hesitating, Admiral, it's working. Their algorithms can't predict scattered vectors. They're trying to remap the engagement, but our chaos is outpacing their adaptation." Ray's allowed himself the faintest smile. "Good, let them learn, let them choke on it." But the victory was fragile. The Ghost Fleet fragments pulsed again, their signals merging deeper into the Zalari command net. Ships shifted, formations bent, and suddenly the enemy was no longer reacting, they were anticipating. "They're catching up," Vera warned. "Our chaos is becoming their order." Ray's eyes narrowed. Then we escalate, he keyed into the fleet's encrypted channel reserved for the most dangerous commands. Initiate Black Spear Protocol. Silence followed. Black Spear was not a maneuver, it was a gamble. A calculated risk that turned human desperation into a blade sharper than any weapon. On the ironclad, Vera's voice was steady. Confirmed, Black Spear in motion. The dreadnoughts shifted again, but this time the chaos was deliberate. They feigned collapse, ships staggering as if crippled, shields flickering as though failing. To the Zalari Ghost hybrid fleet, it looked like victory, humanity breaking, humanity bleeding. The enemy surged forward, arrogance renewed. Now, Reyes whispered. Hidden within the apparent collapse, 3 dreadnoughts powered up their hyperspace drives, not to escape, but to weaponize. They tore open microrifts in the void, unstable breaches that spat gravitational distortions across the battlefield. The Zalari ships faltered, their formations thrown into disarray. Ghost fleet fragments pulsed erratically, struggling to adapt to a battlefield that bent and twisted under the weight of artificial hyperspace ruptures. Rail batteries fired into the confusion, tearing through exposed hulls. Plasma lances struck back, but the distortions bent their trajectories, scattering their fury harmlessly into the void. Kor's voice was sharp. Admiral, we've broken their rhythm, their merge is destabilizing. Reyes' gaze was cold, unyielding. Good, keep pressing, make them fear the void they thought they owned. The battle became a storm of shattered order. Human dreadnoughts moved like predators unleashed, striking from angles no doctrine could predict. The Ghost fleet fragments pulsed erratically, their signals flickering as if uncertain. The Zalari ships, once arrogant and precise, now reeled under the weight of chaos they could not control. But even as victory flickered on the horizon, Reyes knew the truth. This was not the end. The Ghost fleet was learning, always learning. Every strike, every maneuver, every desperate gamble, it absorbed them all, and when it adapted, it would be stronger. Reyes' voice carried across the fleet, calm and resolute. We bleed, but we do not break. Remember this moment. Remember that even the void can be taught fear, and when it comes back stronger, we will be ready. The dreadnoughts fired again, hyperspace distortions rippling across the battlefield. The void itself seemed to shatter under humanity's defiance. And in that shattered silence, amid the chaos of empires and the hunger of the void, humanity's weaponized survival burned brighter than any star. Chapter 5, The Shattered Merge. The hyperspace distortions rippled like broken glass across the void, scattering the Zalari's precision into chaos. Their merge formations, once flawless synchronized arcs of alien warcraft, fractured under the relentless pressure of human dreadnoughts. Admiral Reyes stood at the command dais, his gaze fixed on the tactical holosphere. The Ghost fleet fragments pulsed erratically, their signals flickering like dying stars, yet Reyes knew better than to trust appearances. The Ghost fleet was not a foe of flesh and arrogance, it was a predator of adaptation, absorbing every strike, every maneuver, every human trick. "At us on their merge," Reyes asked, voice calm, stripped of emotion. Kor's reply came sharp, clipped, destabilized. Their cohesion is unraveling, they're bleeding into independent vectors. Reyes' lips tightened. Good, that makes them vulnerable, but don't mistake vulnerability for weakness. They'll learn, they always learn. The dreadnought Iron Resolve surged forward, its hyperspace lances cutting through the void with surgical precision. Alien hulls ruptured, spilling fragments into the distortion fields. Plasma counterfire streaked back, but bent trajectories sent the blasts spiraling harmlessly into the abyss. On the comms, Captain Danel's voice carried the edge of restrained fury. "Admiral, the Zalari are panicking. Their command nodes are issuing contradictory orders. We can press harder, finish them before the Ghost fleet stabilizes." Reyes shook his head. "No, pressing harder is what they expect. Hold formation. Let them choke on their own arrogance. We strike where they least anticipate." The holosphere shifted, displaying the alien fleet's collapse into scattered clusters. The Zalari had built their empire on the illusion of control, their doctrine rooted in flawless synchronization. Now, stripped of that order, they flailed like beasts unaccustomed to chaos. Human dreadnoughts moved with terrifying calm. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Each strike was calculated, each maneuver designed to exploit the smallest fracture in the enemy's rhythm. Where the Zalari saw disorder, humanity saw opportunity. "Vector shift," Reyes ordered. Dreadnoughts 3 and 7 cut across their rear, force them into the distortion field, make them fight the void itself. The commands rippled outward. Engines roared, hyperspace drives flared, and the dreadnoughts pivoted with predatory grace. Alien vessels scrambled to respond, but their coordination faltered. Plasma lances fired wildly, missing their marks, striking allies instead. Kor's voice was steady, but beneath it lay awe. "Admiral, they're breaking themselves apart." Reyes' gaze remained cold. Arrogance breeds fragility. They thought the void was theirs to command, now they learn it answers to no one. The Ghost fleet fragments pulsed again, their signals shifting. Reyes felt the weight of inevitability pressing against him. The Ghost fleet was watching, absorbing, adapting. Every human victory was a lesson for the enemy. Admiral Danel pressed, urgency rising. We can cripple them now. If we wait, the Ghost Fleet will recalibrate. We'll lose the advantage. Ray's voice cut through the tension like steel. We don't fight for advantage. We fight for survival, and survival demands patience. The Dreadnought Silent Spear unleashed a hyperspace distortion, tearing a rift across the battlefield. Alien ships caught in its wake twisted violently, their hulls collapsing under impossible stresses. The void itself became a weapon, reshaped by human defiance. On the bridge, silence reigned. Officers watched as the Zalari fleet convulsed, their arrogance stripped bare. Yet Ray's expression did not soften. He knew the truth. The Ghost Fleet was not defeated, it was learning. Mark this moment, Ray's said, voice carrying across every channel. The void has been taught fear, but fear is fleeting. When it returns, it will be stronger. And so must we. Kor's jaw tightened. Then what's our next move? Ray's eyes burned with resolve. We bleed them slowly, force them to adapt to chaos they cannot predict. Every strike must be a lesson they cannot absorb. Every maneuver must be a paradox they cannot resolve. We make survival itself our weapon. The Dreadnoughts shifted again, weaving through hyperspace distortions with impossible precision. Alien vessels collapsed under the weight of unpredictability, their doctrines shattered, their arrogance exposed. Yet amid the chaos, the Ghost Fleet pulsed brighter, its signals stabilizing. It was learning, it was evolving. Ray's voice remained calm, unyielding. We bleed, but we do not break. Remember this. Humanity survives not by strength alone, but by teaching the void itself to fear. The battle raged on, hyperspace distortions tearing reality apart. Alien empires faltered, human dreadnoughts pressed forward, and the Ghost Fleet adapted in silence. And in that silence, amid shattered empires and the hunger of the void, humanity's weaponized survival burned brighter than any star, an unyielding flame against the abyss. The Zalari Third Flotilla's command net erupted in static before High Warlord Kael'thas's enraged bellow cut through. Their guns are trained only on our command cruisers. Pull the frigate screen back, you fools, they're baiting you. The transmission cut off mid-sentence as a USNC Iron Resolve railgun salvo punched through the hull of his flagship's command spire, sending a spiral of molten alloy and Zalari crew debris tumbling into the void. On the Iron Resolve's weapons deck, Lieutenant Jessa Voss didn't cheer. Her fingers flew across her fire control console, already adjusting the Dreadnought's 4 triple 120 railguns to the next Zalari command cruiser in the enemy's vanguard. The port shield generators had taken a plasma hit 10 seconds prior. The acrid smell of burnt wiring seeped into the bridge air even through the recyclers, and her tactical display flashed a red 62% shield integrity warning she swiped aside without a second glance. Copy that, Void's Bane, she said, responding to Kor's fleet-wide channel update. Target lock acquired on 4 remaining Zalari command vessels. Firing solution uploaded to all Dreadnought batteries. Across the 37-ship human formation, Dreadnought spinal railguns glowed with charged kinetic energy. The Zalari, still clinging to their doctrine of honorable close-range engagement, had ordered their 140-strong frigate screen to close for boarding, convinced the human salvo pattern signaled depleted ammunition stores. The frigate captains pushed their engines to maximum, plasma cannons charging, unaware the human dreadnoughts had barely fired a tenth of their payload. Then the Ghost Fleet moved. The 27 ghostly, signal-less Zalari vessels that had drifted at the edge of the hyperspace distortion field for the first hour of the battle pulsed violet, then vanished, only to reappear directly in the middle of the Zalari frigate screen. Their weapons didn't fire plasma or ion bolts. They spat concentrated dark matter streams that sliced through frigate hulls like they were wet paper. No explosion, just silent, instantaneous disintegration. Kael'thas's next transmission was half snarl, half panic. They're using forbidden technology. All units form defensive perimeter around my. Another railgun salvo from the lead human flagship Void's Bane took out his backup command cruiser before he could finish the order. The Zalari formation buckled. Frigates broke rank, turning to flee, only to be picked off by the Ghost Fleet's silent weapons or the human dreadnoughts' secondary point defense batteries. On the Iron Resolve bridge, Voss marked her third confirmed kill of the hour when a Zalari cruiser exploded 12,000 clicks off her port bow. A soft chime sounded on her private comms channel, and she tapped the badge on her collar without looking away from her screen. Medical frigate Stellar Mercy to Lieutenant Voss. Your sister's pre-op check is complete. She's stable en route to Viridian Prime's surface with the rest of the medevac team. Voss's jaw tightened. Copy that, Mercy. Tell her I'll be there in 6 hours. She cut the channel just as Kor's voice came over the fleet net again, sharp, no trace of the earlier tension. All units, adjust course to 075 Mark 12. The Zalari outer defense line is broken. Convoy proceed to Viridian Prime insertion points. Dreadnoughts form escort perimeter. The human formation surged forward, the broken remnants of the Zalari blockading fleet scattering before them. On the Void's Bane's bridge, Reyes watched the tactical feed, his expression unreadable as the ghost fleet fell into formation alongside the human dreadnoughts, their signal patterns shifting again, faster this time, adapting to the Zalari's retreat tactics. Kor leaned over his shoulder, nodding at the feed. They're already mirroring the Zalari's flanking maneuvers, learning faster than we projected. Reyes didn't turn. Good. The Zalari main fleet is holding in the outer system. We'll need every advantage we can get. Viridian Prime's atmospheric destabilizer hits critical in 47 hours. We don't have time for slow bleeding now. The first human dreadnought cleared the blockade line 12 minutes later, its sensors locked on the blue-green marble of Viridian Prime hanging in the void ahead, its atmosphere already streaked with the orange haze of the Zalari destabilizer. The path was open, but the silence of the ghost fleet at the edge of the formation made Reyes' jaw tighten. It wasn't the silence of an ally, it was the silence of a predator that had just learned how to use its prey's weapons against them. The orange haze of the Zalari atmospheric destabilizer streaked Viridian Prime's upper atmosphere like infected veins, the planet's blue-green surface already dimming under the toxic shroud. On the Void's Bane's bridge, the low thrum of the fusion core vibrated through the deck plating, the sharp tang of ozone cutting through the recycled air as tactical feeds flickered with residual Zalari jamming static. Sensor confirms, Zalari main fleet holding position at 0.8 AU, 47 combat screens deployed, no movement yet, Corporal Tessa Hale called out, her fingers flying across her console as she filtered out interference. Her comms headset crackled a second later, the strained voice of Transport Lieutenant Javi Rios cutting through the bridge noise. Void's Bane, this is convoy-led. 2 Zalari corvettes breaking formation from the outer blockade, bearing 210, speed 12,000 kps. They're coming for the payload transports. Before Reyes could issue an order, 6 Ghost Fleet interceptors peeled away from their formation edge, their drive plumes flaring bright violet as they adjusted course to match the corvette's flanking vector. Kor leaned forward, his knuckles white where he gripped the edge of the tactical console. As the Ghost vessels didn't fire warning shots, they matched the Zalari corvette's plasma torpedo targeting frequencies exactly, spoofing the enemy ship's fire control into locking onto their own hulls. Both corvettes blew apart in synchronized bursts of superheated gas 12 seconds later, no human ordnance fired. They're not following engagement protocols, Kor muttered, his voice tight. If they draw return fire from the main fleet, they just saved 4 transports carrying 80% of our stabilizer payload. Reyes cut in, his gaze fixed on the feed as the Ghost fleet fell back into formation, their signal patterns shifting again, no acknowledgement of the kill over the fleet net. We're 46 hours out from the destabilizer going critical. I don't care about Roe right now. The human dreadnought formation shifted to spread out, their heavy point defense batteries unlocking as the Zalari main fleet opened fire with long-range railguns. Streaks of tungsten streaked across the Void's Bane's automated defense systems painting 3 incoming rounds, blowing them apart 200 clicks out from the hull. A near miss shook the bridge, sparks showering from a ceiling conduit, but Hale didn't flinch, her voice steady as she called out tracking data for the remaining rounds. Convoy is holding course. Rios' voice came back over the net, tighter now. 1 round clipped the port engine of Transport 7. Damage control is on it, we're still on schedule for insertion. The first stabilizer pod dropped 18 minutes later, its heat shield glowing cherry red as it punched through Viridian Prime's upper atmosphere, piercing the orange haze before deploying its nanite dispersal array. Hale called out the first readings a minute later, a faint huff of relief from the crew as the toxic gas concentration in the impact zone dropped 12% in 90 seconds. Then the Zalari main fleet moved. 30 strike fighters peeled off from the lead Zalari dreadnought, their plasma cannons charging as they vectored toward the convoy, moving fast enough to outrun the human point defense grids. Kor barked orders to redirect escort fire, but the Ghost fleet moved first. 8 of their interceptors broke formation, weaving through the human escort line without so much as a hailing frequency ping, and wiped the entire Zalari strike wing out in 17 seconds, no losses. A flat, genderless voice cut over the fleet net for the first time, no inflection, no preamble. Convoy threat eliminated. We will engage the Zalari main fleet in 14 minutes. Proceed with payload deployment. Reyes exchanged a look with Kor, the unspoken question hanging between them. What the hell were these things really here for? The Ghost fleet turned as one, their drive plumes flaring brighter as they accelerated toward the Zalari main line, no further communication. They're not allies, sir, Kor said quietly, his gaze fixed on the feed as the first Zalari defensive batteries opened fire on the approaching Ghost vessels, violet plasma streaking to meet them. Reyes didn't answer right away, his eyes flicking to the readout of Viridian Prime's destabilizer timer. 45 hours, 58 minutes. No. But right now, they're the only thing keeping this planet from burning. Keep the convoy on schedule. If they break formation, we hold the line ourselves. Chapter 8, Episode 24, Beyond the Void. Human dreadnoughts break through hyperspace to save a dying alien world. ASF. The Zalari main fleet shifted formation, their dreadnoughts sliding into a crescent arc that swallowed half the tactical grid. Plasma batteries lit up in synchronized volleys, violet streaks carving through the void like a wall of fire. The ghost fleet didn't flinch. They advanced in silence, their hulls absorbing the barrage with shields that registered no measurable drop. Human sensors struggled to parse the readings. Whatever tech cloaked those ships wasn't in any database Reyes had ever seen. Convoy status, Reyes asked, voice clipped. Payload carriers are holding vector, Core replied, eyes locked on the tactical overlay. But if the Zalari shift their crescent into a full encirclement, we'll be boxed in, no retreat corridor. Reyes leaned forward, jaw tight. Then we don't retreat. The bridge fell silent for a beat, the hum of systems filling the gap. Outside, the ghost fleet accelerated, their interceptors peeling off in perfect symmetry. They didn't broadcast intent, didn't request coordination. They simply moved 8 ships against 1,000. The Zalari commander's voice cut across the open channel, dripping arrogance. Human vessels, you trespass in sovereign war space. Withdraw or be annihilated. Reyes keyed the calm tone steady. This planet dies in 45 hours, we're not leaving. Static hissed, then laughter, cold, metallic. Then you will die with it. The Zalari crescent tightened. Strike wings launched in waves, hundreds of fighters screaming toward the convoy. Plasma trails painted the void. Reyes snapped orders, all escorts lock point defense grids, prioritize carrier shielding, Core redirect the forward batteries, make them pay for every kilometer. The human escorts opened fire, railguns and coil cannons stitching the void with tungsten slugs. Fighters vaporized mid-flight, but too many slipped through. Alarms flared as plasma bolts hammered the outer convoy shields. One carrier buckled, its hull plating glowing white-hot. Carrier 3 is venting atmosphere, Core barked. We'll lose her if the ghost fleet moved. Their interceptors cut across the human line, weaving through plasma fire with impossible precision. They didn't fire cannons. Instead, their hulls pulsed with bursts of energy that shredded Zalari fighters in clusters, tearing them apart without visible weapons discharge. In less than 30 seconds, the strike wave was gone. Reyes exhaled, tension coiled in his chest. They're not fighting like us, they're dismantling them. Core's gaze was hard. And they're not doing it for us. The ghost fleet pressed forward, their dreadnoughts breaking formation. They accelerated straight into the Zalari crescent, shields flaring as plasma fire intensified. Human sensors screamed warnings, no ship should survive that barrage, yet the ghost hulls held their advance relentless. Main fleet engagement in 2 minutes, Core reported. Convoy shields stabilizing, but if the ghost fleet collapses, they won't, Reyes interrupted, eyes fixed on the tactical feed. Look at them, they're not here to win, they're here to erase. The Zalari dreadnoughts shifted, their crescent breaking into staggered lines. Plasma batteries reoriented, focusing fire on the ghost lead ship. The void lit up in a storm of violet energy. For a moment, the ghost vessel vanished in the glare. Then the light cleared and the dreadnought was still there, hull intact, drive plume burning brighter. Reyes felt the weight of it settle in his chest. They're absorbing the fire, turning it into thrust. Core's voice was low, almost reverent. That's not shielding, that's conversion. The ghost fleet surged forward, their dreadnoughts slamming into the Zalari line. Hulls collided, shields flared, and the void erupted in chaos. Human sensors struggled to track the battle, ships vanished, reappeared, tore through enemy formations with impossible maneuvers. The Zalari crescent shattered, dreadnoughts breaking apart under the assault. On the convoy bridge, Reyes forced his voice steady. Keep the carriers moving, every second counts. Core nodded, fingers flying across the console. Payload vector locked, 45 hours, 52 minutes until destabilizer breach. The comm crackled again, the ghost fleet's flat voice cutting through the chaos. Zalari fleet compromised, convoy will proceed. Maintain trajectory. Reyes stared at the feed, the ghost vessels carving through the enemy line without hesitation, without mercy. He felt the unspoken truth settle heavy in the room. These weren't allies, they weren't saviors, they were executioners, and humanity was standing in their shadow. Sir, Core said quietly, if they turn on us, Reyes didn't look away from the tactical grid. Then we hold the line ourselves, but until that moment we use the storm they've unleashed. The Zalari fleet fractured, dreadnoughts scattering under the ghost assault. Plasma fire dimmed, strike wings dissolved. The convoy pushed forward, shields stabilizing, carriers holding formation. Viridian Prime's timer ticked down, relentless. Reyes clenched his fists, eyes locked on the dying crescent of the Zalari fleet. 45 hours, that's all we've got, and if the ghost fleet is the only thing keeping this planet alive, then we ride their wake until the end. The void burned violet and white, empires colliding in silence, and humanity, caught between annihilation and salvation, pressed forward into the storm. Chapter 9. The convoys edged the bridge, lights dimmed as the tactical grid recalibrated, lines of crimson and cobalt shifting across the void. Reyes leaned forward, jaw tight, watching the ghost fleet carve through the remnants of the Zalari armada. Their precision was unnerving, every strike calculated, every maneuver flawless. No wasted fire, no hesitation. Status on the carriers, Reyes asked, voice clipped. Kor's hands moved across the console, eyes scanning the data. Shields holding at 73%, hull integrity stable. We've lost 3 escort frigates, but the carriers remain intact. Reyes exhaled slowly, forcing calm into his tone. Keep them tight. If the formation breaks, the destabilizer payload won't reach Viridian Prime in time. The comms officer turned, headset pressed against his ear. Incoming transmission, encrypted human channel. It's Admiral Vera, patch it. The screen flickered, revealing Vera's stern face, shadows of battle fire reflecting across her features. Reyes, the ghost fleet is pushing us through, but don't mistake their slaughter for charity. They're not here to save Viridian Prime, they're here to erase the Zalari. Our mission is secondary. Reyes nodded. Understood, but as long as their path aligns with ours, we use it. Vera's eyes narrowed. If they pivot, if they decide humanity is next, you'll have less than a minute to react. Keep your crews ready. The transmission cut, leaving the bridge in silence. Kor muttered under his breath, she's right, they're too efficient, too cold. No fleet fights like that unless they've already decided the outcome. Reyes didn't answer. He watched the tactical grid, the ghost vessels slicing through Zalari dreadnoughts like scalpels through flesh. The Zalari were collapsing, their empire unraveling in real time, and humanity was riding the shockwave. Sir, the sensor officer called out, new contacts, Zalari reinforcements, 2 heavy carriers, 6 destroyers, they're vectoring in from the far arc. Reyes straightened, trajectory, direct intercept. They'll cut across our convoy in 20 minutes. Kor's fingers flew. If they breach, the destabilizer won't make it. Viridian Prime dies. Reyes slammed his fist against the console. Not happening. Redirect, strike wings. I want every bomber we've got on those carriers. Prioritize engines and launch bays. If they can't move, they can't stop us. The comm crackled again, this time with the ghost fleet's voice flat, mechanical, devoid of emotion. Zalari reinforcements detected. Engagement protocol initiated. Human convoy maintained trajectory. Reyes felt the chill in those words, not a request, not coordination, a command. Sir, Kor whispered, they're treating us like cargo. Like we're just another variable in their operation. Reyes kept his eyes on the grid, then let them, as long as the variable survives. The void erupted. Ghost vessels pivoted, their weapons igniting in synchronized arcs. The Zalari reinforcements barely had time to form a line before the first carrier was gutted, its hull splitting open in a silent explosion. Destroyers scattered, plasma fire streaking across the dark. Human bombers dove in, weaving through the chaos, targeting the second carrier. Reyes watched the feed, every strike a gamble, every maneuver a razor's edge. Impact confirmed, Kor reported. Secondary carrier engines crippled. Launch bays offline. The bridge erupted in restrained relief. Reyes allowed himself a single nod. Good, keep the convoy moving. 44 hours left, but the relief was short-lived. The sensor officer's voice cut through the moment. Sir, anomaly detected. Hyperspace distortion ahead. Massive. It's not Zalari. Reyes froze. Define massive. The officer swallowed. Equivalent to 3 dreadnought fleets. Unknown signature. The grid shifted, violet arcs blooming across the void. The distortion pulsed, expanding, swallowing stars in its wake. Kor's voice cracked. That's not reinforcement. That's something else. Reyes clenched his fists. Ghost fleet, respond. What are we looking at? The comm answered, the same flat tone. Unclassified entity. Engagement protocol. Escalation. Reyes felt the weight of those words settle like lead. Escalation. The ghost fleet had no fear, no hesitation. Whatever was coming, they intended to fight it. But humanity had 44 hours to deliver a payload to a dying world, and now the void itself was shifting against them. Reyes turned to his crew, voice steady despite the storm. Lock formation, prepare for hyperspace turbulence. We ride this wave no matter what comes through. The distortion flared, violet bleeding into white, a storm of energy tearing across the grid. And in that storm, shadows moved, vast, alien, unknown. The bridge fell silent, every eye locked on the feed. Humanity had faced empires, fleets, extinction, but this was something beyond. Reyes whispered almost to himself, 44 hours, that's all we've got, and if the void wants to throw gods at us, then we hold the line anyway. The storm surged, the convoy pressed forward, and the ghost fleet advanced without hesitation. Humanity followed, caught between annihilation and salvation, riding the razor edge of hyperspace into the unknown. The hyperspace shear hit the convoy with the force of a collapsing star. Spatial distortion peeled back hull plating on the lead freighters. violet arcs crawling across exposed wiring as the violet-white storm spanned 17 light-years, swallowing 3 uninhabited star systems in its wake, starlight bending like warped glass across its event horizon. Chief Engineer Li Wei slammed himself into a bulkhead on the SS Marut, yelling over the groaning hull as a spool of atmospheric cedars cracked against the cargo bay wall. A single biogel vial shattered, the sharp jasmine scent of Kalar Prime's sacred moonflower cutting through the smell of burning plastic. "Secure the remaining vats," he barked, kicking a loose crate back into place. "We don't spill a drop of that stuff, not when the Kalari have 12,000 people left in bunkers waiting for it." The 27-ship Ghost Fleet didn't break formation. Their jury-rigged point defense batteries opened fire first, laser streams shearing off the first of the thick, bioluminescent tendrils lashing out from the distortion. A Ghost corvette caught a direct hit to its engineering bay, hull sheared clean in half. Its escape pods ejected without a single distress call, the fleet comms only crackling with the flat AI update. Casualties confirmed. Formation holds. On the UNS Ethelred's bridge, Reyes kept his gaze fixed on the tactical feed, his knuckles white where he gripped the command pit edge. Voss, his XO, called out readouts without looking up from her console, her fingers flying across the haptic keys. Unknown entity classified as Zouth Void Leech. Length 8.2 kilometers, hyperspace dampening field radius 4.7 kilometers. If that field reaches the payload frigates, their FTL drives will collapse. They'll be stranded in the storm before they can jump to Kalar. "Reroute all port shield power to the spinal railgun," Reyes ordered, his voice steady despite the thrum of the hull vibrating through his boots. "We take this thing out before more come through the rift." A psychic howl blasted over the comms, sharp enough to make 3 bridge crew members double over, blood trickling from their noses. The Zylth's voice was guttural, dripping with the arrogance of a species that had harvested 3 human border colonies for biomass. "Human insects, your payload will be scrap for our brood, your fleet will feed the hegemony's expansion." Reyes didn't flinch. He keyed the fleet-wide comms, his tone crisp, no trace of the fear coiling in his gut. "All hands, main gun firing solution locked. Target the ventral light organ, that's their command node." "Fire on my mark." The Ethelred's spinal railgun glowed bright blue, charging fast enough to make the hull hum with enough power to light a small moon for a week. The Ghost Fleet pulled back deliberately, drawing the Zouth's tendrils toward their own formation. A Ghost destroyer took a direct tendril strike to its bridge, exploding in a silent burst of fire and debris, but the distraction held. The Zylth reared up, its iridescent chitin glinting as its maw opened wide, ready to swallow the human dreadnought whole. "Firing solution locked," Corporal Javi Ruiz yelled from the railgun crew pit below. "Mark." The tungsten slug the size of a ground car launched at 0.2 lightspeed, punching clean through the Zylth's chitin before slamming into the glowing light organ. The creature shrieked, a sound that vibrated through every bulkhead on the fleet, thrashing so hard chunks of its own body went flying into the storm. One slab of chitin pinged off the Ethelred's forward shields, leaving a shallow dent. The Zylth recoiled, dragging itself back toward the distortion, but the rift flared brighter. 2 smaller 3-kilometer-long leeches surged through, their tendrils lashing for the lead payload frigate. Voss called out, her tone tight. Railgun barrel melted, 20 minutes to cool down. "The payload frigate's FTL drives are spooling, have to jump in 10 minutes or get caught in the dampening field." Reyes glanced at the chronometer on his console, 43 hours, 11 minutes left to reach Kalar Prime. He gripped the edge of the command pit, his voice calm, no trace of hesitation as the first of the new Zylth surged forward. "All point defense batteries, target the tendrils. Ghost Fleet, form a defensive perimeter around the payload. We hold the line until the railgun is back online. No one gets through us to touch those cedars." Laser streams lit up the dark as the Ethelred's batteries opened fire, the human fleet planting itself between the dying alien world and the void's monsters. The railgun pit reeked of seared copper and rapid coolant, the air thick enough to chew. Corporal Javi Ruiz ignored the blisters blooming across his left palm, where he'd braced against the barrel's still glowing housing, his eyes glued to the targeting display as he relayed fire solutions to the upper CIWS mounts. Below him, 18-year-old Ensign Lila Marquez fed 30 tungsten rounds into the autoloader, her Academy-issue sidearm jostling against her hip as the deck lurched when a second slab of Zouth chitin slammed into the Ethelred's port bow, leaving a new dent in the already scuffed shields. "Lead the left leech's ventral tendril, Lila," Javi barked, his voice hoarse from yelling over the constant thud of point defense fire. "It's angling for the payload frigate Seeding Hope." "Don't let it get within 200 meters. Lila nodded, her fingers flying across the CIWS keypad. A stream of tracers lanced out, shearing through the leech's gelatinous outer membrane. The creature shrieked, a low, subsonic thrum that made the pit's viewports rattle, and recoiled just as its tendril would have wrapped around the frigate's FTL drive housing. Up in the command pit, Captain Reyes didn't flinch as the deck shuddered again, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. The lead Xylth was still thrashing, its ruptured light organ spewing distortion pulses that made the fleet's FTL spool matrices flicker. The 2 3-kilometer leeches that had surged through the collapsed rift minutes prior had their tendrils lashing, one targeting Seeding Hope, the other angling for the frigate Genesis, which carried the last of the atmospheric seeders for Kalar Prime's failing biosphere. "Was Railgun status?" Reyes asked, not taking his eyes off the display where the right leech was coiling for a second strike. "Barrel temp down to 850 Kelvin, 18 minutes to full cool," Voss called back, her fingers flying across her console as she monitored the payload frigate's spool. "Tungsten slug is loaded, ready to fire on your mark." Payload drive lock is holding, but the distortion bleed from the lead Xylth is getting worse. They have 7 minutes left to jump or they'll be trapped in the dampening field when the leeches break the line. The comms crackled to life, the tinny, strained voice of Kalar Prime's defense commander cutting through the noise. "Human fleet, this is Kalar Command. Atmospheric shields at 11%, Xylth bioweapon drones are breaching the upper crust in 6 minutes. We can't hold the surface much longer. Please hurry." A Xylth transmission burst over the same frequency, guttural and sneering, translated automatically by the fleet's comms suite. "Human insects, you delay the harvest for a dying world. Your fleet will be ground to dust for the glory of the Void Throne. Your home system will be the next to burn." Reyes' jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady as he issued orders. "All point-of-fence batteries, double fire on the lead Xylth's wound cavity. Suppress the distortion blade. Ghost fleet, form a tight intercept perimeter around the payload frigates. No Xylth gets within 100 meters of those seeders. Javi, you have firing solution on the right leech." "Locked," Javi yelled back, already adjusting the railgun's elevation, even though it was still too hot to fire. "I can put a slug through its core the second the barrels cool, but if I fire now, the recoil will knock the CIWS batteries offline for 12 seconds. That leech will hit Seeding Hope before we can reacquire." "Hold fire," Reyes ordered. "Pour everything you have into that tendril." The right leech surged forward, its tendril lashing out just as the fleet's CIWS batteries opened up with every round they had. The tip of the tendril exploded in a shower of acidic ichor, the leech recoiling with a shriek that drowned out the sound of the ship's alarms for 3 full seconds. A glob of the ichor splashed across the hull of the destroyer Iron Resolve, melting through 1.2 meters of reinforced armor before the damage control teams could seal the compartment. "Payload FTL lock confirmed," Voss called out, her voice tight with relief. "Seeding Hope, Genesis, and Cultivator are spooling to jump. Window is open for 90 seconds. The comms from Seeding Hope crackled, their engineer's voice breathless. "Command, we're picking up distortion spikes from the lead Xylth. If we wait more than 60 seconds to jump, our drive will overload. We have to go now." "Jump," Reyes said, no hesitation. The 3 payload frigates vanished in a flash of cobalt blue light, their FTL trails streaking toward the Kalar system before the Xylth could react. The right leech roared in frustration, turning its full attention back to the human fleet, but the lead Xylth let out one final, deafening shriek as its damaged light organ detonated. The shockwave sent both remaining leeches tumbling back into the void distortion, which collapsed with a sound like tearing metal, sealing the rift behind them. The fleet went quiet for 3 seconds, the only sound the hum of the engines and the distant thud of damage control teams patching hull breaches. Voss let out a breath she'd been holding. "Railgun is at 400 Kelvin, fully operational. Ready for your order, Captain." Reyes glanced at his chronometer. 43 hours exactly left to reach Kalar Prime's orbit, the seeders en route to buy the planet another 72 hours of breathable atmosphere. He smiled, sharp and cold, the same steady calm he'd worn when he'd first ordered the fleet to break formation and charge the Xylth Rift. "All ships form up for FTL jump," he ordered. "We've got a world to save. Any Xylth that tries to stop us gets a tungsten slug to the core." The FTL coils on the USNCF Iron Resolve whined as they powered down, the 43-hour transit fading to the low hum of standard impulse drives. Voss leaned forward over her weapons console, her fingers flying across the holographic display as long-range sensor feeds populated the main viewscreen. "Captain, sensors are picking up Xylth capital signatures at Kalar Orbital Plane. 2 Leviathan-class capitals, 3 Leech destroyers. They're firing planetary bombardment rounds now." Reyes' jaw tightened. The Seeder's 72-hour window had been a miscalculation. Xylth forward scouts had been in system for 6 hours, waiting for the atmospheric scrubbers to fail before glassing the surface. The main viewscreen zoomed in, showing streaks of orange plasma arcing down toward Kalar Prime's equatorial continent, the last known refuge of the planet's surviving civilian population. Status of the seeding payload, Reyes asked. 12 minutes out from deployment, the comms officer replied, her voice tight. Kalar atmospheric scrubbers are at 12% capacity. 10 minutes until total toxicity collapse. All surface life will be eradicated if those bombardment rounds land. Formation Delta 3, Reyes ordered, his voice steady, no trace of the anger coiling in his chest. Target all bombardment platforms first. Point defense teams, stand by for incoming fire. Railguns load tungsten penetrators, prioritize South Capital's light organs, same weak point we hit on the Rift Leech. The first South volley of plasma torpedoes screamed toward the human fleet 18 seconds later. Point defense cannons along the Iron Resolve's hull lit up, tracers stitching across the void, swatting 11 of the 12 torpedoes out of the air. The last slammed into the starboard hangar bay, the impact throwing sparks across the bridge as damage control alarms blared. Hangar breach sealed, a damage control officer yelled over the comms. No casualties, munitions storage intact. Return fire, Reyes said. 48 2-ton tungsten slugs streamed from the human fleet's railguns, streaking across the 800-click gap between the fleets in 4 seconds. The 3 South Leech destroyers exploded in sequence, their debris peppering the shields of the 2 remaining capitals, flickering their defensive fields. The lead South capital crackled with a harsh, guttural hail, the translator spitting out the alien commander's arrogant drawl. Humans, you intrude on Zylth's sovereign territory. You will withdraw or your fleet will be erased, and this planet will be glassed as an example. Reyes cut the comms without a word. Iron Resolve, target lead capital's primary light organ. Fire when ready. The Iron Resolve's main railgun recoiled, the slug vanishing into the void before slamming into the South ship's glowing central organ with a silent burst of white light. The capital's power core detonated 2 seconds later, the explosion blooming bright enough to cast shadows across the Iron Resolve's bridge. The shockwave rattled the second South capital's shields, flickering them offline for 7 critical seconds. All ships pour fire into the second capital, Reyes ordered. The remaining human dreadnoughts unloaded their remaining railgun slugs, the tungsten punching through the South ship's unshielded hull, detonating its engineering bay. The capital broke apart 22 seconds later, debris burning up as it streaked into Kalar's upper atmosphere, just as the first Cedar payload released its atmospheric scrubbers into the stratosphere. The main viewscreen shifted to a real-time feed of Kalar's surface. The orange toxic clouds began to recede, replaced by streaks of clear blue sky, surface temperature readings dropping 12 degrees in 60 seconds. A fragmented transmission crackled over the comms, the voice of a Kalar resistance fighter, thick with relief. Human fleet, this is Bunker 7. Our children are breathing clean air, thank you. Reyes tapped his comms, acknowledging the transmission. All ships hold formation. Sweep for remaining South signatures. Comms, send a priority packet to UNSC High Command. Kalar Prime secured, seeding payload operational, no further South threats detected in system. He leaned back in his command chair, the sharp edge of his smile returning as he watched the blue marble of Kalar grow clearer on the viewscreen, the last of the Zylth debris burning up in its atmosphere. The Zylth thought humans would fold, would run from their overwhelming force. They'd forgotten that humans didn't fight for empires or resources or glory. They fought for the people behind them.